good morning. Well, at least it's morning here, and wherever you are, good afternoon or morning or whatever. It's good to see you. Here we are for another live stream. It's hard to believe these weeks come and go so fast. And today we're going to be talking about a subject that is inspired by a reading from Beyond Belief, Agnostic Musings for Beyond Belief, Agnostic Musings for 12-Step Life. And it's all about expressing needs. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring Mary out here to join in the conversation. And there she is. Hey, Mary.
Hey, how are you, John?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much.
Good,
And
good.
I guess that your group had the meeting today based on this reading from
Yes,
Joe's
we
book.
actually do our meeting I have a women's meeting at 10 online.
Mm-hmm.
It's called A New Freedom every Saturday. And we read from this. This is what we do. We read the topic of the day and then we discuss.
Well, good.
And so today that's what we're doing here. So I've already had a little practice run.
Good deal. I read the reading yesterday, and I thought it's all about expressing our needs, what
Mhm.
letting people know what we need. And hey, Jeff and Neil and Fred. Anyway, so I didn't know a whole lot about it. I don't know if there's any place in 12-step programs where we ever really talk about letting people know what we need. It wasn't, so I went ahead and read a book about it. And the book was called Unfuck Your Boundaries. Let me give you the full title. It was Unfuck Your Boundaries, Building Better Relationships Through Consent, Communication, and Expressing Your Needs by Faith G. Harper. And she's a therapist down in Texas somewhere. And anyway, it was kind of an interesting book. So I just thought, okay, I just need some sort of background knowledge to help me with this. And so we'll see if that helps me or not. I don't know.
Okay, I want to hear about that.
Okay.
All right.
And Bobbert is in the room and Jeff is in the room. Welcome, everybody. So we got 14 people right now. That's great. I'm always so grateful for you guys to be here. It makes this so much nicer. You help this conversation. It's a conversation and you guys are part of it. And
Yeah.
so thank you for that.
Yeah, you are definitely part of it.
Oh my God, because I could never talk about a subject like this by myself. It's something I don't really know anything about it. But anyway.
Yeah, you do.
Shall we start with Joe's reading?
Yes, you go.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that. I'm gonna go ahead and put it up for you all so you can read it. Here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and do a screen share. Why is this always hard for me? There we go. There. So I think you can read it now. So this is from January 14th from Joe's book, Beyond Belief, Agnostic Musings for 12-Step Life. And it's from January 14th. And it's actually the quote is actually taken from a U.S. Air Force manual of all things. So
can you make that bigger, John?
Oh, yeah. I think I might be able to make it bigger. Maybe not.
It looks, I don't know. It looks like
it might be bigger for the people at home.
Okay,
I don't know.
Got you. Okay.
Anyway, so it's taken from a U.S. Air Force manual. It says it's generally inadvisable to eject directly over the area you just bombed. That's from the Air Force manual. Don't eject over the area you just bombed. Okay. So who says military intelligence is an oxymoron? This looks like pretty good advice. To many, this is a familiar scenario. The practical lesson, even for pacifists, is that the safe confines of our metaphorical cockpits may have to be abandoned due to the unexpected. Do we have a safe place to land if we need to eject? Like the metaphor that warns of burning our bridges behind us, we should think through our exit strategies in case things don't go our way. Our households, the boss's office, our home groups of our social networks might not be sanctuaries if we unloaded a shitstorm the last time we were there. We take responsibility for our actions in recovery, and we become mindful and more considerate of how our actions impact on others. Less bombing will lead to less hiding, less apologizing, and less chaos, and we will endure less retaliation too. We all need a safe place to vent and the right time to do it. Sometimes we have wrath that we feel compelled to unleash. Restraint is a sign of maturity. Some letters, emails, and speeches are best when they aren't delivered. Isn't that the truth? It can be healthy just to get our feelings out on paper. How much more do we get from hitting the send button and dropping the bomb? And at what cost? Life is unpredictable. Like our pilot who has to eject from his warplane, we never know from whom we might need help or mercy tomorrow. We stand up for what we believe. We are also cautious about imposing our will on others. War is the utter failure of diplomacy. How good am I at diplomacy? Can I express my needs and wants without being threatening or passive aggressive? That, I think, was the question that inspired me to read that book. Can I express my needs and wants without being threatening or passive aggressive? Very good. There we go.
And so, did the book talk to you about how to language your wants and needs?
It did. It said, like, for communicating your wants and needs, to use I statements, basically. So you say, you let someone know how that I feel this when you do blank, and what I
Mhm.
want is that. So you just let people know that, it's something they can't really argue with. That, I feel crappy when you are just looking at your phone when I'm trying to talk to you. I would like for you to put your phone down and talk to me, something like
Yeah.
that.
So that's a simple request,
Yeah, just stating it.
clearly stated.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But it's a really interesting book because it looks at, boundaries on both sides. Like, when people violate our boundaries and when we violate other people's boundaries, what boundaries are, why they can be violated, and how to communicate to people what you want, and different types of people and situations where some people are just so crazy, Mary, that they're incapable of having any empathy or understanding. And there are some times that you just have to say, okay, this person's crazy, and there's ways to deal with the crazy people without you yourself going crazy. So
Mhm.
anyway, it was kind of an interesting book, and it didn't take long to read it, and it was kind of a nice way to spend the evening.
Oh,
So
good. I love that. I love that. I love that you read something and you share it with us, and then
well,
we yeah, it's another title I write
thanks.
down. Yeah.
And but my difficulty is I'm so terrible about reading something and then understanding what I just read. So that's why I went ahead and made some notes, and I'll just, who knows,
Yeah.
some of it should have sunk in, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
so tell me
So,
what your thoughts are and what your group's
okay,
thoughts are
so
when you talked about this.
well, what I thought, like what you got from it was expressing your needs.
Hmm.
And what I got from the whole thing was how to know when to express my needs
Mm,
and how to language it when I do. And sort of what this whole reading for me is an explanation of, and this is just for me personally. The 12 steps is a process for cleaning up the bridges that I burnt through
right.
my emails and the
Hmm.
send button or the conversations or the times that I um, did a verbal bombing that was not thought about prior to doing it. And so for me, the whole concept of the 12 steps is a way to clean up that wreckage so that I could come from a place of not avoiding the situation or acting like it never happened, so that I have more room and it's less resentment and less blowback from all the times that I did anger bomb or speak when I really wasn't sure about my viewpoint yet. And so I think this says that, kind of like pause when agitated is a sign of maturity. And I'm learning in my mature time to
Hmm.
when to pause and when to speak. And prior in my life, I just thought my opinion was right and everyone should know it. And now I'm not so sure of my opinion. And I'm also willing to say to myself, is it really urgent? And is this the time, or can we wait and settle with it before I voice my opinion? I'm not so quick anymore. I'm willing to just pick my battles and let people have their opinions. And I feel that I'm also learning how to language what my opinion is so that it's less finger pointing toward the people I'm speaking with. And because, it's true, like your home group is a place of sanctuary or wherever you go for your recovery. And so, as a rule, when I was in my non-recovery days, I didn't think about that.
Hmm.
Yeah. I didn't stop to say it in a less passive aggressive way, or to say it more clearly, or to say it less angrily or less often. And so I
Yeah.
think getting quieter is where I'm at now. And I really have to sit with my feelings and really ask myself, if I have an opposing viewpoint, you know, do I really, until I'm sure that I really have to say it, I have to ask myself, am I doing this out of ego, or is this something that I really need, I feel, to share? And if I still feel like that a week later, then I'll share it.
That's so good. One thing that I do remember from this book, she said that it's good to listen to your body. So like in a situation like that, my body will tell me that I'm angry or upset, right? So like I used to have a bad problem. I've actually I can say used to, because I don't do this anymore, seriously. And I think it was my boss that helped me with this. But I used to have a problem of sending stupid angry emails at work, or getting involved in an email fight, right? With someone. And anyway, there was one day at work where I was exchanging these stupid, angry emails with some other person over some stupid thing. And my boss was copied in all these emails.
Oh no.
She came running out of a meeting and she said, "Stop that. Don't send another email." And she was really nice. I said, "Yeah, I really shouldn't send emails when I'm angry."
Well, I feel like it's easier to get your point across in an email for me
Yeah.
personally than it does speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it helps get it out easier.
But just write it and delete it sometimes. You
Yes,
don't
and
have to
like
actually send it. Like Neil
no.
says, Bill W. used to write letters and throw them away and not
Yeah,
actually
or
mail
burn it.
them
Yeah,
or burn them. Yeah.
absolutely.
So,
Just to get it out of myself
mhm.
helps. And I always talk things through now with another person
Yeah.
and just say, I'm feeling this, and usually it's not just me. I always felt like I was the only one that had the opposing opinion. Or if I had a certain take on something, I'd be like, am I the only, like, this doesn't sound right to me. And then usually I'm not the only one. If I talk it through with other people, they'll be like, no, I kind of had that take on it too. But as a rule in my whole life, I always seem to have a different point of view than the group that was talking. Even when
Mhm.
I was a child, I'd be like, yeah, I don't feel that way about that. Or, and that's kind of contributed to my feeling different.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, it's not about that. It's just who I am and how I process information. And so and another person in the meeting today talked about when she is speaking to other people at her job, they might not have a similar viewpoint or lifestyle, but she tries to concentrate on the heart of the human that she's talking to and just see if she can connect from a heart space with them rather than an opinion personality space, because they're coming to her for help. And so in order to help them, she just has to look at the heart space. And I do that a lot with members of my own family that have completely opposite viewpoints than I do about a lot of things, that I have to realize I love them and they're who they are to me in the heart. And so I just avoid the whole perspective thing.
I
It's just
wonder.
not.
So I wonder if that kind of goes along with this little tip that I learned from this book, that she would call it like putting up a thin window pane between you and the person you're talking with, so that you can see them, you can hear them, but their emotional stuff isn't hitting you.
Mhm.
That's what I'm saying. So she has this. So yeah, you can. They might be angry, they might be sad or whatever, but all you need to do is focus on what they're saying and hear them, and not let their emotional baggage and bullshit
Right.
hit you.
Absorb, or you
Yeah,
absorb it.
it
Yeah.
gets caught by the
Mhm.
screen.
Yeah. And I also feel though that now when I do want to voice my opinion, I want to also honor the person that I'm talking to, because they have a right to their opinion and their viewpoint and their perspective and how they got to that perspective. And
Yeah.
so I want them to know that I hear you and I honor you as a human being. And
Mhm.
I feel that this is, wrong what you're saying, but I hear what you're saying and I hear where you're feeling this tension. And then sometimes I notice if I'm triggered by something, like I was in an AA meeting the other day, and we're a secular meeting and talking about maybe going into intergroup. And someone said that they heard that we were a bootleg meeting and we didn't read conference approved literature. So therefore we weren't a real AA. And
Mhm.
so that kind of talk triggers me. And so I realize when I'm responding, my voice shakes, and it's because I'm triggered. So sometimes I just wait for that anger part to subside before I respond. I get a better a better response
Yeah.
when I do. And sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. We're all triggered by different things. Yeah.
So
So that's a whole nother conversation about what's real and what's not.
so when I was reading this book, I was kind of thinking that, a lot of the conflict that we have with people does have to do with either not setting up boundaries, not letting people know what your boundaries are, people stepping on yours or you stepping on someone else's. And she said that in her book, she said that she thinks that one reason it's really difficult to let people know what you want is because our society isn't geared that way. Our society is geared towards like a hierarchy where people want to control other people. And honestly, if you look at how just history of how certain groups have dominated other groups, I mean, it just shows that's how human beings have set up their societies, and to a large extent ours is that way. So like I know for myself, when I grew up going to school and so forth, it wasn't my job to, as a kid, to say this is what I want, this is what I need.
Yeah.
It was my job to just do
What
as
the
and
adults
behave,
said.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you go into the workplace and it's kind of the world is kind of structured that way. It's not structured in a way that makes it easy for you to say, wait, this is what you're stepping on my toes here. This is really the way I want you to talk to me or treat me. The world just isn't set up that way. But she
No.
says that it can be, and there have been, countries and different areas of the world and people that have structured their society that is more of uh, a place where people can actually be more equal and listen. And I can't remember. I guess she calls it a consent culture, where you have to, you ask for someone's consent before you do some sort of interaction with them. Is this okay for me to do this? Is it okay for me? Yeah.
Yeah. And I see that in child rearing now, in people in my family and friends in recovery groups. The way they're raising their children now is consent based.
Yeah.
Consent based. And then
so different from how I was raised.
I have a hard time with it because I was raised that, you kind of, the adults are the bosses.
Right.
And, you are, to an extent, can voice your opinion, but the adults are the authority, kind of like, and the adults get to pick what's going on. But in different, and I'm probably not going to language it correctly, but in different families I see now, the kids have to consent to whatever the adults want first. And so to me, it almost looks like an imbalance where the adults are letting the kids be in charge.
Yeah.
That's kind of my take on it. And I'm uncomfortable with that. But I see it, they see it, I see it as a dictatorship until you're 18. And they see it as a, it's a democracy. And I keep telling my kids and my family, this isn't a democracy.
That's what I used to be told. Fred, I'll get you a link to that book. She also wrote a book called Unfuck Your Brain. And so this is kind of taken from that book. So she got some ideas from Unfuck Your Brain. Anyway, I'll get that link for you and put it in here in just a little bit, Fred. So I kind of lost my train of thought, what I was thinking.
Oh, well, go ahead.
No, yeah.
Just talking about your needs and speaking your needs in a simple way.
About how difficult it is. It just doesn't come natural. It doesn't come natural because of just the way that things are structured in our world. And, and sometimes there are situations where you actually can't, like, and I was kind of reminded, she talked about, some people have these personality types where they are incapable of respecting someone else's boundaries or caring, honestly. And you have to know who these people are.
Right.
And I guess it's kind of like picking and choosing your battles. There's sometimes you just can't, but there's ways of dealing with those people. And I've certainly been in those situations, and it was a work situation where I just had a manager who was just awful to me, awful, and just made my life miserable. And I guess I could have done something. It would have been either talk to him, and I think he was kind of like one of these personality types that he wouldn't really care about how I felt. I could have gone to HR, but I don't know if that would have helped anything. So I just no, they don't. I learned in business that HR is there to protect the company, not the employees. And that's really the truth.
It is.
So it is. So anyway, I just kind of took it, and she kind of wrote about that too, that there are certain personality types that won't respect your boundary. Yeah, narcissist, Jennifer, exactly. Narcissist. She called them high conflict personalities or something like that. But there are these narcissists. They just have this thing. And she did say that they have that because of just kind of their past experiences with way that they have had to deal with life. So she said she calls them high conflict personalities. They want to feel in control, and their past experiences show them that having needs met is always a fight.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they're constantly in conflict.
Oh, wow.
And they have limited emotional self-control. They're almost entirely dominated by negative emotions. They have limited behavioral self-control. So their behaviors, they just react to however they're feeling. And they have black and white thinking. So to them, something is right and it needs wrong and it needs to be corrected, basically.
Yeah, they're always saying there's something wrong here.
There's something wrong and they need to
They're always
correct
saying
it.
there's something wrong here. Yeah. And I just had a manager like that at one of the places I work, and I did my best to avoid her at every possible time I could, because it was always going to be, there's something wrong here. And she was almost like a policeman rather than a manager.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And her skill set was a whole different level for where the environment she was in.
Mm-hmm.
But, I just avoid, if possible.
Ghost, I like this comment. Yo, it's my sober buddies, even though I see you guys once a month. Well, I'm glad that you're here, Ghost Fluff.
Yeah, we are your sober buddies.
We are.
Yeah. And if anybody out there struggling with staying sober on this January 14th, you're in the right place. Yeah, you're in the right place.
So I learned another really good trick from this book about how to deal with people that are like that, that are just impossible. People that don't care about your boundaries and will step on them all the time because they kind of get a kick out of it.
Yes, and bullies.
Yeah, bullies, narcissists. Anyway, she said that it's a trick that she learned from someone, a blogger, called the gray rock. And it's basically that you are unresponsive and you make yourself as boring as possible to that person so that they're no longer intrigued with stepping on your toes and pushing your boundaries. So it's just like, they're making some comment to you about, that's insulting or, somehow infringing on you. And you say, oh, whatever. You just have no response, basically.
Right. You just don't give them the fuel.
Yeah, exactly. And it's called the gray rock, that you're just kind of boring and you're just.
That's a great way to handle a bully.
Yeah,
because then they'll just move on to someone that'll fight with them.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
Fred has a resource here. Another good resource is Not Crazy Yet. Then Start Talking to Yourself Differently. Green Language, Drama-Free Communication. The author is John Tompkins, MFT. Thank you. And then Walker says, often when we ask for something we need, we do not like the answer and vice versa. Be authentic most of all.
That's true. Be careful what you ask for.
Be often when we ask for something we need, we don't like the answer and vice versa. That is so interesting. Yeah. You're right. Not everyone is, you might need, not everyone's gonna care about what your needs are, I guess. Mm-hmm. But she did write about how, sometimes, someone will give us some information about what their boundaries are, and we might not like it, like Walker just wrote. And, she said we don't like hearing no. We don't like people telling us no. And she wrote that if someone says no, it's not a reflection on you as a person. It's on what your request is. It's what you're wanting. And they don't want that. It's not that you're, so don't take it personal when someone says no.
Yeah.
And in fact, be thankful that they're letting you know what they like,
right.
what they prefer.
As opposed to passive aggressive. Yeah.
So that's really good information. But yeah, our natural instinct is when someone says no is, I don't want you to say no, but, and often too, it's like you do and take it personal. Hell, I remember the very first time I ever asked a girl for a date, the very first time she said no.
And then what happens?
I was like, it crushed me. It was my very first experience every time. But and I did take it personal. I thought like there's something wrong with me, but no, she just whatever reason she preferred not to go out with me, and that's fine. She was very nice to me thereafter. But that was my
Mhm.
my very first experience with hearing that no. It's
That's
probably
funny
a
how
good thing.
that's
Probably a good thing too that was my first.
well,
Because
they
it
always
prepared me.
say every no is just another step toward a yes.
That's true. That's true.
Mhm.
But no, we don't like we don't like it when people say no. Um, but anyway, she talked about how society is geared so that it's not really natural for us to let people know what we need, and then she talked about oh gosh, different types of boundaries. Like there are physical boundaries, property boundaries, sexual boundaries, emotional, relational, intellectual, spiritual, and time. And I guess the one that I used to struggle with was time more than anything else. But physical boundaries is basically when people are violating things that you own.
Right.
They don't respect your property.
Mhm.
Or yeah, that's property boundaries. Physical boundaries is when they're touching you, they're
Mhm.
getting in your physical space
Mhm.
in a way that you don't like. Um, Sexual is, letting people know what your sexual preferences are, what you like, what you don't like. Then emotional relational, she says, is demonstrating our respect for our own personhood and the personhood of others, which I thought was
Mhm.
really
Yes,
that really struck me,
I love
having
that.
respect for your personhood and the personhood of others.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's so important. And to let people know that you respect them
Mhm.
and you honor them and they're not wrong as a person. You might not agree with their opinion, but it's their opinion you're disagreeing with, not that they're wrong as a human being.
Right. And
Mhm.
respecting that both ways for yourself and for them.
Yes, both ways. Yes.
So anyway, but the time one is the one that I deal with a lot and have made progress with. But it's always about, time is our most precious resource, and not having my boundaries have always been permeable in the past. So, and that's because I have the personality type where I'm just trying to please everybody, right?
Yep. People pleaser,
I want to be liked,
right?
and I don't want to say no. I don't because I know people don't like to hear no.
And you
And
want to be helpful, but it doesn't work for you.
right.
Yeah. You don't know how to voice.
And
Yeah.
so that was a big mess for me when I was involved with ICSA for a while, and this podcast and all kinds of different things I was involved in. And I just didn't have the time, and so I did have to learn how to, um, with time, it was kind of easy in a way because it is a finite thing. I mean, you only have so much of it.
True. Very
And I
true.
have a full-time job. 8 hours of the day is taken up with that. I have to sleep another 8 hours. I mean, there's not that much time for things.
To add in, to
Yeah,
add
and you
in.
have to be
Yep.
really, really careful about how you give your time away. I still I still struggle with that too, Mary, because I don't often account for, like, something that might seem like a small little thing that I agree to do, but it just adds on to all of the other things.
Mhm.
So it can be very,
Mhm.
very, difficult.
I
J
learned that in there's a book, something about people pleasers,
Mhm.
and they suggested because I do a lot of volunteer work. When someone's asking you to do something, that to just I would write on index cards, "Can I think about that?" or "Can I let you know tomorrow?" or "I don't know right now, but I'll get back with you tomorrow on that," so that I can actually had to have it written in front of me, so I wouldn't feel conflicted in the moment. That I could step back and think about it before I said the no or the yes. And
Mhm.
so, I realize that I don't have to say yes right then on that phone call. I can say, I'll get back with you tomorrow on that. And usually by the next day, I've had enough gumption to say, no, it's not going to work for me. I can't do it. Because if I don't have stand up for my own agenda, I'll become somebody else's agenda.
Yeah.
And
So
what does
Jeff
Jeff R say?
he says that his group is planning to change their meeting format. He wants to suggest that it be secular, and he's trying to find a way to express that,
Oh,
and he
God,
says it's difficult.
been there, done that.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that, the group I went to in Kansas City, they would I mean, it's just you have some personalities, unfortunately, in some of
Yes.
these groups that
Yeah.
don't want something new, different.
Change. No
They don't want
change.
change, so
They
it
don't
can be
want
very
change.
I just had
Yeah.
to start my own group.
That's
Jennifer,
what I did. I tried to change it, but I ultimately left and started a secular meeting myself.
same.
Mhm.
A lot of time, the things that we allow become the boundaries we settle for and not the boundaries we prefer or need for our own personal well-being.
That's true. That is very true.
Yeah, she that book I read talked about that a little bit about just allowing things to happen. And I mean, it can be difficult because the right way to be for a healthy person is to have some flexibility in their life. But for me, I would just, like Jennifer says, I would just kind of allow this to happen, and all of a sudden that just became what
You
what my
couldn't
boundaries were,
handle.
right?
Right, right.
I let other people set them up for me,
Someone
and
else's.
which wasn't very good. So very astute comment.
But also, John, go back to what you said in the very beginning of the show when you just said you learned how to language your needs. And so you said, I would, when I'm talking to you and you're on the cell phone, I would like you to just put the phone down. So you actually say what the
Yeah,
thing is that bothers you and then what the solution, what it is that you would prefer. So it
yeah,
gives the person a true understanding of what you're asking for.
right. She calls them I statements. I feel I feel blank when you do blank. What I want is this.
Blank. Yeah, that's a great way to language it so they know what you're asking.
She went into some detail about levels of communication. She said that there are 4 levels of communication. She says that there's what we mean to say to people, what we actually say to people, what the other person hears, and what the
Yes,
other person thinks you mean. So it
exactly.
can get really
Yes,
so
absolutely. Yes, yes.
yeah. And so she suggests that we communicate what we want instead of what we don't want.
Oh, good. That's good. Hmm.
Yeah. So those are all nice little tips in that book. And then, like I said, it wasn't difficult to it didn't take a lot to read. And she also says, be brief, informative, friendly, and firm. So, like for example, if you're saying no to somebody that you're setting up a boundary, like I don't have time to do this,
Right.
don't go into a big explanation.
Oh
Just be
yeah, they don't want to know that what you're doing in the next week. They don't. They just want to know what your answer is. Yeah.
right. Just be
Mhm.
brief. Don't over explain. Don't give any extra information, and be informative. Don't focus on any incorrect statements from the other person, but just focus on your accurate statements. So, just
Yeah.
say, I don't have time. I've got XYZ. And if someone is hostile with you and making demands of you, don't meet their hostility with further hostility. Just be
Yes.
friendly and
Very
be
true.
firm in a non-threatening
Mhm.
way. I
In a
mean,
non-threatening way. Yes.
all kinds of good stuff there from her little
And
book.
resist the urge to be passive aggressive. It's
Yes.
too easy to have a parting shot or say something in sarcasm. Yeah.
Ghost, I'm sorry. Um, says, I fail at basic communication like this weekly on Twitch. Not being English makes it so easy to mess up syntax and intent. I have never got into Twixt, although that this is actually being you're on Twitch. How about that? Did you know, Mary, that we stream on Twitch besides Facebook and YouTube? And Ghostloff here is from Twitch.
Well,
He's
okay,
watching us
great.
on Twitch. Cool.
Wow.
Yeah, very nice. I'm going to try to get more involved in Twitch. I just haven't done too much with it, but it's so nice to have you from that platform here. Most of us are
So
on.
tell me, I hate to say this, but I don't know what Twitch is. What does it compare
Um,
to? Give me a
I
comparison.
have no idea, Mary. it's
Are you talking about like
it's kind of like YouTube, I guess. I mean, I've watched like shows on
okay, the
Twitch.
streaming platform?
Yeah, like musicians will play, will do like concerts or something, and you're like in a room with that musician, and you can make comments and stuff to them.
Oh yeah, I'll have to check it out. Cool.
Ed says, within the confines of sociology, nearly everyone belongs in affinity groups. It's truly difficult to be completely separate from everyone. Black sheep gravitate towards other black sheep, even if it happens in the rooms of AA. So
Yeah, outsiders gather together. Yeah, I get that.
Joe Bob has an interesting comment. As a clinically diagnosed empath, and I didn't even know, that could be, but it's so cool. I find myself particularly vulnerable to the near constant impositions of narcissists. Wow. That surprises me. I didn't know that um, that was even a thing, but it makes sense. That everybody has certain their personality leans towards a certain way,
Mhm.
and so and definitely, if you're feeling, I think that would be feeling other people's pain so intensely, and anyway. So yeah, Ghostloff says it's basically like YouTube, Twix is. It's just
Okay.
different website and a different system when it comes to likes and followers and subscribers and so
Oh,
forth.
good. I'll check it out. Thank you. Learn something new every day.
Yeah, it's kind of it is like a streaming thing. I mean, the only times I've done it is like there are like some musicians that will do like concerts and stuff on there, and then you're in a room with them and you can let them know what you think about
I'm
whatever.
definitely going to check that out as soon as we hang up today.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, very, very interesting stuff here. I don't know what else I was thinking about what I learned from her book, other than we talked about this a little bit already during our conversation, but there boundaries are structured. Like you can have rigid boundaries, permeable boundaries, and flexible boundaries. And rigid boundaries are basically there's no room for negotiation. And some boundaries should be very rigid. Don't hit me.
Right. Yeah.
Don't drain my bank account, whatever.
Right.
But permeable boundaries are the ones I think that I was guilty of, and what Jennifer was suggesting that we do is allowing other people to set those boundaries for you. You're so wishy-washy and permeable.
Because you will be someone else's agenda if you don't stand up for your own.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And rigid, I feel like I'm getting less rigid.
Yeah.
And as I mature, I'm less rigid than I used to be.
It's so interesting that there's always some room, like sometimes you need to be rigid, sometimes you don't want to be rigid.
Right. Flexibility is good. Yes.
She used this example of like, so she's a therapist. And so she has her chair that she likes to sit in when her clients come in for their therapy session.
Right.
But sometimes the client will sit in her chair.
And like, no, you got to get up.
No, but she says she'll let them. She says it's what's really important is the therapy session, not who sits where. So she'll let them sit wherever the hell they want to, even though she would much rather prefer being in that chair. Isn't that funny though?
Yeah, it is.
Someone would do that.
It is. Well, I mean, I've seen that in the rooms of AA that some people always sit in that chair.
Yeah.
And then people would come in and they would sit there and someone would say, no, that's her chair. You know, it's like, I mean,
it's not really their chair.
It's not really their chair, but it becomes their chair. Yeah.
And we do feel that way. Like if you go to a meeting every week, every day, whatever, and you sit in the same place all the time, and all of a sudden you go there and someone else is sitting in where you normally sit.
Right.
You might feel kind of weird. You probably won't say anything, but some people will. Some people say, hey.
A lot of people will say, sorry, get up. That's her chair.
But it's really not.
It's really not. And that's where you get to check yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have the phone lines open, by the way, if anybody cares to call. It's 844-899-8278. Oh my goodness.
Well, so have you ever are you getting better though at this is all about don't eject over where you just bombed. And I they say as you go up the ladder of success, you're going to meet the same people when you're falling down. So just make sure that you're copacetic, with everybody. And I think, cleaning up those kind of situations is important. If I did do something when I didn't pause when I was agitated. And so because I don't like to apologize that much and clean stuff up, it keeps me from bombing as much as I would have. So I'm more aware that if I do this, I'm going to have to apologize and clean it up later. So do I really want to do it? Is it really that important?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good way, a measure of withholding my opinion and not pressing the send button.
Yeah. I do. Most of my problems with interpersonal relationships, I guess, are usually at work. And there are certain people because of our personalities that I might have a more difficult time with than others. And I'm learning right now, what's actually helping me is my current boss. because he is so kind and easygoing with me, and just the way that he communicates to me both verbally and in text is so kind and thoughtful that I'm kind of replicating that
Mhm.
with these other people.
Mhm.
And I think it does help. It helps me anyway. It makes me think, wow, I'm being a nice person here.
Yeah, and you can, and a better communicator.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, like they always say, people remember not what you said, but how you made them feel.
Mhm.
And so it's all about tone and intention, I think, a lot. And people will just, if I'm pissed off when I'm saying it, they'll just see the pissed offness, not so much the message.
Jeff says, thanks. Got to tilt at windmills sometimes, eh? When it doesn't work, I can at least go to Hamilton and hang out with Roger C. Hamilton. So you're up there in Ontario.
There you go.
I've been to Hamilton before. I went to, and I had a great time there. I went to the Secular Ontario AA Roundup in Hamilton. I think it was in 2019, or maybe it was 2017. It was either the year before. No, it was 2019, the year after the conference in Toronto. And I had a great time. They're still doing it, I'm sure, but they had it at a Unitarian Universalist church in Hamilton. I stayed at Hamilton, and it was great. So yeah, I've been there, Jeff, and it's a lovely area. And I did not go to Roger's meeting though, but I think that the meeting was held in the same place where they had the conference at that time. So yeah, good memories. Good memories. I hope that I can do that again.
I would love to. I'm ready for a secular conference.
I really prefer the smaller regional ones, like that one. I really enjoyed SOAR. But no, that's not really true. I enjoyed the other one too. I really had a great time in Toronto at
I did
that
too.
one.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was. That was probably Santa Monica I really enjoyed, but I think Toronto I really, really enjoyed because I love the city. It was a place I'd never been. I had a lot of friends there, a lot to see and do, and I had a great time at that conference. And
Agreed.
Even the trip on up there, we drove up there, and that was fun too.
Did y'all stay at the hotel?
Yeah, we stayed there.
Yeah.
We stayed at the hotel in Toronto.
I stayed out just a couple blocks away at an Airbnb.
Okay, I bet that was nice.
Yeah, it was nice and quiet, and it was a nice apartment and walking distance. It was awesome.
Cool. Well, do you think we covered this topic pretty much?
I think we did. I mean, I think it's talking about how to communicate and how to express what your needs are.
Right.
And I have a hard time when my feelings get hurt. For the most part, up until now, I recede from the situation and I just withdraw. And I don't like to say that hurt my feelings because I feel like it's a sign of weakness on my part, which is silly. And recently I told someone that had hurt my feelings that hurt my feelings. But, now from talking to you about the way that this author languaged it, it might have been better to say, when you did A, I felt B, and I wish next time you do C. Yeah. So that it has kind of a what I'm asking for, instead of just saying, you hurt my feelings. And then they go, well, we didn't know that. And that wasn't our intent. And then all the excuses for why they did what they did. They just felt like I was sort of criticizing them. And so now I've learned how, just from this conversation, how next time to say it.
I'm really quickly here going to get a link to that book. Here it goes. Good.
Oh, okay. They're talking about, Ghost is talking about Twitch.
Yeah.
And then Ghost says, so when you guys go to these events, what are your pleasures to drink along the way? Like you stick to water or soda, flavored water?
Oh, all right. Well, you must be pretty new to sobriety, I guess. Okay, so I tried it anyway. I don't drink alcohol. So yes, I drink other things.
I drink other things.
Actually, coffee is my beverage of choice, it seems anymore.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Coffee and it's so funny, it's a stimulant, but it calms me down. It for whatever reason, I just feel like, so yes, coffee is my go-to
Coffee
beverage.
understands me.
Yeah. And thanks for doing the Afternoon with the Atheist show. I'm glad that you liked that, Neil. That was interesting. I did a recording with like 4 people, which I don't often do. It's usually just one person. And it turned out well, I guess. And people enjoyed that. So it was an interesting conversation. Um, I'm enjoying the podcast right now. I tell you what, Mary, I've every year I kind of make a resolution when it comes to the podcast, and I'm really kind of simplifying it a little bit. So I like when I last year I had to sponsor SoberLink, which was really nice, that they would sponsor the podcast, but I felt a lot of pressure to have an episode out every single week because they were paying me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I decided that it just wasn't worth it to not have a sponsor, because I need to take some breaks, and I'm going to
Right.
take some breaks.
Right.
I'm going to take some breaks every few months, and I don't need the extra pressure of having to, get something out every week like that.
Yeah, good. So you're taking care of yourself.
Yeah. And I'm also scheduling a lot better. So like right now I caught up on my emails, and I scheduled interviews with people. They're all authors. They've all written books. Okay. And I like to read, but this is a lot of work, to take the time to read.
Yes.
And usually I would like spend like an entire day doing nothing but reading to get. So I'm now scheduling it out. So I block my calendar out so I have time to read their books before I talk to them.
That's awesome.
And yeah, so I'm just trying to be a little bit more organized and disciplined, and not let other people drive how I do this podcast. Isn't that interesting? That really was what was happening. This isn't my job, but I was somehow thinking that I had to do this to please these other people or whatever, and no. So I'm really trying to be more careful and just say, this is something I enjoy doing, but I can't let it drive me crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just simplify things.
It's worth your inner peace.
Yeah.
So give me some names of some authors that you've lined up.
Oh gosh. Okay. Let me tell you. I will tell you here. If I can, I'm terrible at remembering their names, but I can tell you.
Tell us what the books are.
I will in a second. I'm sorry.
Okay. And did you just pick them because you were interested in it?
They reach out to me. So one of the authors wrote a book called Get Me to the Abbey, and her name is Lisa Evera. And it says here, Get Me to the Abbey unveils alcoholism through the eyes of a stubborn middle-aged Midwesterner who is forced to give up her favorite pastime, drinking. So it's kind of like a memoir, but she went to AA, and she had a problem with the higher power concept in AA, and she wrote about that in her book. So I thought that'd be appropriate to talk to her. She also lives in Iowa, not far from me. So I thought it would be kind of nice to have her on the podcast. And let's see who else I've got on there. My last. Okay. Oh yeah, this is another book that I thought would be interesting. Christopher Dale, he wrote a book called Better Halves: Rebuilding a Post-Addiction Marriage.
Wow, that's a good topic.
Yeah. So I thought so too. And so he wrote this book all about how dealing with relationships after you get sober. And I don't think I've ever covered that on the podcast before. So I'm looking forward to reading that book that he wrote. So there's just a couple there. And then there's some others. Oh yeah, there's another guy who wrote a book. I almost was hesitant to book this one, Mary, because so many of these books have been written about interpreting the 12 steps in a secular way. Mm-hmm. And yet another book on how to do that. And I thought,
what is it though?
It's called We Sober Agnostics.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and read that book and talk to him. And I know it'll be interesting. And, I need to kind of get over that. There's like 18,000 books on how to do this now, but that's good. There once was a time when there weren't hardly any of these books around, and there are quite a few now. So there's all kinds of options for people who, I
have a workbook I bought years ago called How to Do the 12 Steps with ADD. It's for people with ADD to do the 12 steps. Yeah, I would love to talk about that sometime with someone.
Oh, another book. I'm sorry. This one I haven't.
What is it?
Co Crazy. A
Okay.
Memoir and Roadmap to Freedom. One Psychologist Recovery from Codependency and Addiction. I talk to so many therapists and psychologists now that I honestly feel like I'm constantly in therapy.
And that's what's wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with it. I do get some. They're very nice, and I've got some episodes to post. Actually, I think I told you about the lady who wrote about horses.
Yes.
Yeah, she's a therapist, and lovely person, and very. I just love the way that she talked about horses and how horses relate in a herd, and what we can learn from them. Just very interesting. I don't even know how to even explain it, but I'll do that one soon. So today I'm going to actually get that episode ready to post it for Wednesday, and then spend some time reading is what I'm going to do today and this weekend. So
there you go. You blocked it out.
Mm-hmm. What about you? What you got going on this weekend?
Oh, well, Saturdays are the day that I don't leave the house if I don't want to.
Nice.
It's like I don't make plans except I have my meeting before this and then the podcast. And then Saturdays are stay home if I want, but I don't plan things. So this is my day to just probably I will leave the house and do a couple things, fun things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of my recharge day. Yeah, because Sunday is a more social day, but yeah, I don't know. It's cold outside. I might just stay home and drink chocolate.
Well, that's what I do when it's cold.
I want to watch that movie Elvis, which I haven't seen yet.
Oh, is that a new one?
Well, it came out last June, and it's about Elvis Presley, and it got a Golden Globe Best Actor so far, I think, and so it's probably going to get an Oscar. And everyone says it's really good, so I'm going to put that on.
I think I'll watch that too.
Tonight. Yeah.
I tell you what, man, I'm enjoying watching movies lately just as an escape from the news of the world. I am freaking sick.
I can't even go there with the news.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm vulnerable, I just don't go to those channels. I can't do it.
I'm not listening. I read a headline anymore, and that's all I can stand. So anyway,
Agreed. Yeah.
So thank you everybody for being here. It was great to talk to Mary. Thank you, Mary. I love these conversations, and I hope that you all got some value out of this, some benefit of it, that you enjoyed it. Go sloth, take care of yourself. I don't know what to say, but it's not easy when you're first getting sober, but you can do it.
You can totally do it.
And there are resources out there. Check out this YouTube channel, and you'll find a lot of them, but there's a lot of great places to go for help online now. So you should be able to find some resources.
Yeah, you can go to Secular Recovery Online is a good source for meetings.
Yep. Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm going to go ahead now, and we're going to say goodbye. And last time I didn't do the right introduction, but this time I will end this thing correctly. So here we go. I do this. All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, y'all. See you next week.
See y'all next week. Bye-bye. Take care now.